Members, it's the appointed time and we have a quorum. I call to order the meeting. The meeting is supposed to end at 5:30 p.m. today. If need be, I will extend the meeting by 15 minutes at most. Members, if you have any direct or indirect pecuniary interest in relation to the items to be discussed today, please, in accordance with Rule 83A of the Rules of Procedures, disclose the nature of such interest. Please also bear in mind Rule 84 of the Rules of Procedures about voting on the discussion item in which you have pecuniary interest with. I would like to declare that I'm a consultant of the Bank of China HK because there is one public works project that we're going to consider today. The first item is to invite members to approve the recommendation of the Public Works Subcommittee made on the 6th of November 2024. The paper number is PWSC 20242514, and the proposal is to upgrade item 806TH, dueling of Hiram's highway from Marina, Cove to Cyclone Town to Category A at an estimated cost of $2,748.9 million in money of the day prices. The Public Works Subcommittee does not recommend the paper for further discussion by the Finance Committee, and no less than 3 members had jointly requested the FC to discuss it further. So we will not discuss this paper further. I now put this paper FCR 20242538 to vote. Members who approve this item, please raise your hands. Those against this item, please raise your hand. None? All right. I believe that the majority of the members present are in favor of this proposal. I declare that this item is approved. Item number 2, FCR 20242539. This item is about raising judicial pay by 3% for judges and judicial officers, starting from the 1st of April 2024. The panel for administration of justice and has been consulted, and we have Ms. Milia from the administration to attend this item. Since the chairman of the panel is not here, I will briefly talk about what this item is about. On the 1st of November 2024, on the panel, this has been discussed. At the panel on administration of justice and legal services, and members raised questions about the judicial pay. Members raised concerns about the manpower shortage of JJOs. Member asked whether there are enough incentives to attract existing judges and judicial officers to stay in their positions, and whether the administration or the judiciary can recruit qualified legal practitioners to join the judiciary. Members also raised a few recommendations on how to address the manpower problem. The administration has taken note of members' concerns. Members support the increase in judicial pay and support that this item be submitted to this Finance Committee for scrutiny. A number of members have pressed the button. They are Dr. Johnny, Mr. Lam Chun Sing, Mr. Chao Xiu Chung, Ms. Maggie Chen, Dr. So Chen Wei, Ms. Doreen Kong, Mr. Tang Fei, Dr. Tan Yue Heng, Ms. Carmen Khan, Ms. Eunice Yong, and Professor Priscilla Leung.
Dr. Johnny Ng. Thank you, Chairman. An independent judicial systems is crucial to the one country, two systems principle. However, under paragraph 16, it is said that during the 12 months between 2023 and 2024, the PTI for senior ranking civil servants is 5.4%, but the rate for salary adjustment is just 3% for JJO. I wonder if the percentage is enough for us to attract legal talents. Ms. Ng. Thank you, Chairman. As mentioned in the paper, the Standing Committee on Judicial Salaries and Conditions of Service have considered a basket of factors amounting to 12 factors before coming up or arriving at the 3% figure. That include the salary level of the private sector, we look at a host of factors holistically. You ask if the 3% is sufficient for us to attract barristers and lawyers in the private practice to become a judge. Well, that is affected by a number of factors. Remuneration and benefits are some of the factors, but we also offer a security of tenure, and some lawyers and barristers are passionate about serving the community. So we don't just work on our remuneration. We also try to improve the benefits and allowances that we offer. As mentioned in the paper, the judiciary is looking into how we can retain experienced judges. At the same time, we try to attract lawyers in the private practice to join the CFI. Because a judges for CSI is no easy job, but if you look at our baseline study, the magistrates and the judges in district courts remuneration are higher than those in the private practice by 7% and 19% respectively. So we think that our remuneration package is attractive at the level of district court judges and magistrates. We will try to improve our remuneration further. Next, Mr. Lam Chun Sing. Thank you, Chairman. You look at 12 factors to adjust the pay for JJOs. That's 6 factors more for compared to the salary adjustment for civil servants. But we don't have a formula. We don't know what weightings you give to individual factors. It seems that you are just blindly following the 3% proposal for civil servants. Can you let us know which factors you give more weighting to? Some factors are not as meaningful. You said that you look at the caseload, and then you said that you don't just look at the caseload because the complexity to different cases are different. And you also say that you look at pay at overseas jurisdictions, but then you also say that you haven't really hired overseas JJOs, and that's why the overseas pay is just for reference. You also say that you make reference to the pay in the private sector, and then you also say that there is uniqueness to the JJOs. That's why it's not appropriate to just look at the pay in the private sector. And you say also look at the strengths and establishment, as well as the general economic situation. Although there are 12 factors laid out in the paper, some of them are not really applicable. So can you tell us what factors are given more weighting when you arrive at this 3% figure? I'd like to also know more about how you retain and attract talents. The establishment consists 200 staff, but the strength is just 116, rather 160, which is similar to that of the civil servants. The establishment is 190,000, but the strength is only 170,000. So there are always vacancies. Are you unable to hire JJOs, or are you not motivated to do so? For criminal cases, from the first hearing to trial, the target is 100 days, but in reality, defendants have to wait some 400 days. It's perhaps impossible for you to fill all the vacancies, but can you, say, hire 10 or 20 more judges in a year so that we can meet our target? Ms. Ng, thank you. Regarding the first question on the 12 factors, that was derived from the 2005 review, and in 2008, the Chief Executive and Council approved the mechanism. On how we adjust the JJO's pay. Apart from annual adjustment, we also conduct a regular benchmark study. We also consider the independence of judicial work. Some factors are unique to the JJOs. We look at the report of the Standing Committee on Judicial Salaries and Conditions of Service. It is said that they consider all of the 12 factors. They don't give heavy weighting to any particular factors. We look at the economic situation in Hong Kong, the private sector pay levels and trends, public sector pay, as well as their workload, and how difficult it is it for us to recruit JJOs. In the report this year, it is proposed that we should increase the pay by 3%. As for the vacancies, we are well aware of the situation. We are motivated to recruit more JJOs, and we have dedicated much efforts in this area. Let me give you some figures. Over the past few rounds of recruitments from the middle of last year, for district court judges, high court judges, magistrates, we have achieved quite some results. Over the past few rounds of recruitment, we have recruited 7 CFI judges, 8 district court judges. And among these 8 district court judges, some of them come from the private sector. They are barristers in private practice. It's difficult for us to hire judges, so we should continue to improve our remuneration and benefits. Next, Mr. Chao Chiu-tong. Thank you, Chairman. We should compare the JJO's pay to the private sector pay levels. This is important for us to maintain the stability of the JJOs. It is proposed that we should increase the pay for judges and judicial officers by 3%. This is departing from the private sector pay levels, in my opinion. I think that the Standing Committee has taken into account the fiscal position of the government before arriving at the 3% figure, but if we continue to deviate from the private sector pay, then we will not be able to retain talents. And it seems that there is no descriptions on net pay indicators. In last year's report, you used some thousands of characters to describe the net paid indicators. It seems that you are only using gross pay indicators this year. Over 9 years' time in the past, we only make use of the net pay indicators. However, in this year, you're only using the gross indicators. Does it mean that you will no longer rely on the net pay indicators in the future? That's my first question. Second, in 2022-23, it was proposed that a 2.5% increase should be given, but then eventually, then the net pay indicators was 8.1%. From 2020 to 2021, it was said that the net pay indicators was not applied, and it was hoped that the JJO's pay adjustment would be taken into account. I've made some calculations from 2021 onwards. Since the government is not adjusting the pay according to the net pay indicators, there is a discrepancy of 7.21%. Comparing to if we follow the net pay indicators. In 2011, the administration proposed a cumulative pay increase, having taken into account the frozen pay in some previous year. So will you make reference to the 2011 practice to reflect the pay increase that was not reflected and adjust the pay accumulatively? Ms. Ng? Thank you. Let me answer the second part of the question first. If you look at the report of the Standing Committee on the Judicial Salaries and Conditions of Service, they actually looked at the private sector pay levels and trends. Although the gross PTI pay trend indicator for the upper salary band was 5.05%, the net pay trend indicators should be 4.76%. We have taken into account the private sector pay trends. But we look at the overall pay levels in the private sector, but not just pay levels for senior legal practitioners. Previously, there were some years when we looked at the overall economic situation and the fiscal position of the government. For example, in some years, we froze the salary, and sometimes we align our pay adjustment to that of the civil servants. The Judicial Committee did look at it, and they have regards to the situation in each and every year. You also ask if there will be a cumulative increase in the future. We try to use the pay to attract people practicing in private to join the public sector. I've said that for district court judges and the magistrates, our package is better than that in the private sector. That's one way for us to attract talents. However, the deviation for High Court is huge. We try to increase cumulatively the pay. In 2015, after conducting the benchmark pay study, we add a 4% to 6% in addition to the regular increase for JJOs. If necessary, we may add pay on top of the regular increase. We'll look at the market. As I've mentioned, Administrator, there is one question that you have not addressed. Please be succinct.
How come the net indicator was not applied to this pay adjustment? Every time it is the Judicial Committee that takes into consideration all factors. The report does not mention about the net indicator. However, we have considered the pay trend in the private sector. Ms. Maggie Chan. Thank you, Chair. I support the 3% increase for the judicial pay. However, on attracting and retaining talents in the judiciary, I think a 3% pay rise is not going to help attract and retain talents. My first question is about allowances and benefits. That is factor D among the basket of factors. After the 3% pay rise, will the Judicial Committee consider enhancing the benefits and allowances of judges of the High Court? That's my first question. Second question. After the 3% pay rise, will you consider implementing a 2-tier pay rise after collecting data? For example, in the district court level or at the magistrates, you will introduce an overall pay rise, but at a higher court level, you will introduce another pay rise. Director of Administration. Thank you. The Judicial Committee's report touches on this point, that is about the benefits and allowances enjoyed by JJOs. According to the report, the Judicial Committee understands that the judiciary is currently reviewing the benefits and allowances enjoyed by JJOs. In particular, the judiciary wants to retain the most senior judges, hoping that they will serve beyond their retirement, and that the judiciary wants to attract more legal practitioners to become judges of the Court of First Instance. So, on retaining and attracting talents, the judiciary does want to do more. The Judicial Committee did say that it will consider in a positive light if there are any proposals from the judiciary in this regard. On your second question, it is about whether there will be a 2-tier pay rise. As mentioned, we did introduce a 2-tier pay rise in the past. We propose a 3% pay increase this year. And every 5 years there is a benchmark study. As mentioned, the next benchmark study will compare the existing remuneration packages of the judges as well as the remuneration packages of legal practitioners in the private sector to see if the remuneration packages offered by the judiciary could catch up with the pay in the private sector. We will then consider whether there needs to be adjustments to the pay rise. I think what Ms. Maggie Chan is saying is that she hopes that there can be a 2-tier pay rise every year, but you were saying that there will be regular reviews. So I believe what you are saying is that there won't be a 2-tier pay rise now, but then after carrying out the study, you will see whether the 2-tier system would be appropriate, right? Dr. So Chun-Wing. Some members asked whether or why the government does not follow the pay trend in the private sector and only proposes a 3% pay rise. I was stunned by the reply of the administration. The director said twice that there are people joining the judiciary from the private sector, and the director also stresses that those working for the judiciary do not only look at the remuneration packages. She stresses that they are people who want to serve the community. The thing is that you have 24% of vacancies. We value judicial independence here, and we have to ensure that there is enough manpower in the judiciary. We see that there's a long waiting time for cases to be dealt with in courts. So I don't understand why you aren't enhancing the remuneration packages to retain talents. The Judicial Committee has already said that the civil service pay as well as the judicial pay should be delinked. However, now you are following the civil service pay rise and increase the judicial pay by 3%. Understand that there are various factors to attract people to work in the judiciary. However, I want to know if you can attract more people to join the judiciary by enhancing the remuneration arrangements. Director. Apart from introducing a pay adjustment, we also take into consideration JJO's benefits and allowances. In fact, in 2016, we reviewed the remuneration packages of JJOs, including their benefits and allowances. We also enhanced the housing benefits, education allowance, as well as medical benefits of JJOs. As mentioned, the judiciary will continue to review the remuneration packages of JJOs, and the Judicial Committee will consider in a positive light if there are any proposals from the judiciary. The remuneration packages of JJOs aren't the same as that for civil servants. For example, when we recruit magistrates, apart from their salary, say we have 3 plus 3 for the first contract, and after the 3 plus 3 arrangement, magistrate gets 25% of gratuity. There are also other benefits enjoyed by magistrates that aren't enjoyed by other civil servants. So we will continue to review the remuneration packages of JJOs. Ms. Doreen Kong. Thank you, Chairman. I support this reasonable pay rise for JJOs. I think a reasonable pay increase is important for JJOs. An attractive remuneration package can help us uphold and maintain judicial independence. So I think this is a good and reasonable vision. In some previous occasions, members have expressed that we understand that there is a manpower shortage in the judiciary, which results in longer trial time or longer waiting time for cases to be dealt with. I see that in year 2003, the government conducted a large-scale consultancy studies which covered the remuneration package and arrangements for JJOs. I understand that under common law systems, it's been quite competitive in terms of recruiting JJOs. The last consultancy study was carried out in 2003. Will the administration consider conducting another study to see how the judiciary should retain and attract talents? Will there be any enhanced exit arrangements for judges who want to return to the private sector after they retire, for example? Also, will you carry out a comprehensive study to compare the pay in the private sector as well as the pay in the judiciary? I think this is crucial for the long-term development of the judicial system in Hong Kong. Director. I will bring this comment from Ms. Doreen Kong to the judiciary for its consideration. As mentioned, there were some comments made in 2005 after the study was carried out, and in 2008 the recommendations were implemented. We need an independent organization to review the judicial service pay mechanism. We also have to take into consideration judicial independence as well as the unique challenges faced by the judiciary. We have the 12 factors, and they are very comprehensive because they cover many areas of work of the judiciary. The judiciary is of the view that the current judicial pay mechanism can help cope with the unique challenges faced by the judiciary. As to whether there is room for improvement in relation to this mechanism, I will bring the comment back to the judiciary. Mr. Tang Fei, I support the increase in pay for judges and judicial officers. According to page 2 of the paper, there are 12 factors that are being considered. And as mentioned by the administration, all these factors are weighed equally. I think this is reasonable because if certain factors are weighed more, then you will have to explain the reason. Under the judicial service pay mechanism, there are 12 factors that need to be considered, and they cover the comparison of pay for JJOs as well as pay in the private sector. We have to look at whether the remuneration package offered is attractive enough to help retain judges. According to the paper, we have some 20% of vacancies yet to be filled. I'm not sure if the administration has thought about whether the vacancies could be filled by the proposed increase of pay. Or is it the case that the administration has not thought about it? Is the government only looking at the inflation rate as well as the private sector pay levels as well as the judiciary pay level? Is it just a formality that you review yearly the pay increase? Will the administration think about making use of the pay mechanism to help cope with the manpower crunch within the judiciary? So my question is, will the administration consider addressing the vacancy issues through reviewing the pay rise? Because this helps ensure justice. Has the administration thought about it? If not, you have to let the judiciary know that it is part of the judiciary's goal to address the manpower shortage through the pay mechanism. Thank you.
Director. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Tang, for the suggestion and comment. We cannot rely solely on the pay adjustment or pay rise to attract legal practitioners in the private sector to join the judiciary. As I've said, remuneration is just the basic. We're working on other areas. We are recruiting more frequently, for example. Previously, the legal sector is not really familiar with the pay or the remuneration package of JJOs. So the judiciary has organized briefings for the Bar Association on the work of the JJOs and the remuneration and benefits. We think that these briefings are very useful. And because of these briefings, we have recruited more young legal practitioners to join the judiciary. We're also working on other areas. The caseload of High Court is heavy. The judiciary has identified the problem, and that's why they have hired more legal assistants on a full-time basis. In the final Court of Appeal and the High Court, we have 23 full-time legal assistants that can be redeployed to help High Court judges and final Court of Appeal judges to carry out the works. We also have 18 part-time legal assistants. We also leverage on technology. So apart from remuneration, we also have other ways to help alleviate the burden of the JGOs. For example, by recruiting judicial assistants. We also employ temporary judges. If these temporary judges find the work suit them, they may join the judiciary eventually. Mr. Tang Yuhen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, I support the pay adjustment for JJOs. That is the increase of 3%. I have read the materials. The pay rise has minimal impact on the fiscal position of the government, which amount to only $15.3 million. The Finance Committee did not put this item to a vote directly. It seems that we have issue with the nature. While 12 factors are involved, some are unique to the work of JJOs. It seems that the Judicial Committee has taken into account the job nature of the JJOs, the complexity of the work, as well as their caseload. In particular, the pay of judges is essential to the maintenance of high level of judiciary or judicial services. The pay of JJOs should be competitive when compared to those in the private sector. The pay for JJO should be high. So I have a question. How does the pay level for JJO compare to their peers in the private sector? Second, I know that a recruitment exercise is ongoing. 3 rounds of recruitment was conducted from April to July in 2024. 6 plus 2, that are 8 judges have been appointed. I'm sure that we have more than 8 applicants. The number of applicants should be more than the number of judges that we have appointed. How concerned is the applicant about the pay? Because I'm not sure if some applicants don't come for interview because of the low pay. This is the 3rd time a member asked about the pay. The reason why we don't put an exact figure is because it changes every year. Same goes for the civil service pay adjustment. We only use the percentage. Director, thank you. As mentioned, the financial impact amount to approximately $15.3 million. Mr. Tan asked how JJO's pay compared to those in the private sector. Under our benchmark study last time, the pay for high court judges is 40% less than their peers in the private sector. But then for district court judges and the magistrates, their pay is 7% and 19% more than their peers in the private sector, respectively. We will conduct the next benchmark study next year. Compared to public organization, that is the judiciary, that forms a part of the official mechanism. We look at the uniqueness of the work of the JJO before we decide on the percentage. Just like the pay scale for disciplined services is different from those of the civilian staff of the government, Ms. Carmen Khan. Thank you. I support the pay adjustment of 3%. Let me talk about why I support it and my understanding of the mechanism. The pay adjustment is determined by the Chief Executive in Council after considering the recommendations of the Judicial Committee. In other words, the Chief Executive in Council did not arrive at the figure on their own. They have considered the recommendations of the Judicial Committee. There are 4 major factors that have been considered by the Judicial Committee before arriving at the percentage. The Director of Administration said very clearly that the Judicial Committee considered the 12 factors every year. They have taken into account the upper salary band adjustment for civil servants, that is 5.05% for this year. And in June, there is a 3% adjustment across the board for the civil service. That's the factor that the Judicial Committee has taken into account, and the committee also have to make sure that the pay is enough to maintain our judicial independence. The committee also look at the stance of the judiciary, and the judiciary said that they have no comment. I think that the Judicial Committee have considered the 4 factors that I said comprehensively. I have some observations. First of all, as some members have pointed out, although the committee has considered the 4 factors that I mentioned, the eventual outcome is 3%, which is the same as that for the civil service adjustment. Maybe the director should explain why that is the case. Second, similar to what Ms. Maggie Chen said, I think that we have to be pragmatic about our benchmark study. There are 3 tiers to the courts. We have CFI judges, district judges, and magistrates. And in the HALSP paper, it is said that the committee notices the persistent difficulties in hiring district judges or rather CFI judges and high court judges. The director said that the pay for district judges and magistrates are similar to that in the private sector, and it's easier to hire these types of judges. And it is also said that the recruitment for district judges and magistrates are satisfactory. So I think that we should not align the pay adjustment for all 3 tiers of judges. Maybe we should introduce a 2-tier adjustment or a 3-tier adjustment. Thank you, Chairman. 2 questions, Director. Thank you, Chairman. Regarding the second question, as to whether we will consider introducing a 2-tier or 3-tier pay adjustment, considering how difficult it is to recruit different types of judges. I will relay the suggestion to the judiciary. As for the first question, well, it appears that our pay adjustments is the same as that for the civil servants. Well, if we look at the report of the Judicial Committee, it is said that the committee has taken into account all of the 12 factors. And there were cases where the pay adjustment for JJOs are the same and are not the same as that of the civil service. So the Judicial Committee look at the situation every year individually. Thank you.
Ms. Eunice Yong. Thank you, Chairman. I support the 3% pay rise for judges and judicial officers. Since 2008, we have been following the 12 factors. However, I see that other factors have not been considered. For example, we saw some large-scale cases, including the one involving the 47 defendants. Some foreigners proposed sanctioning our judges. In 2008, these situations did not exist. I think these situations have to be considered together with the 12 factors. This is because judges are under undue pressure. There was doxing, and also there has been more than once where there are people who try to attack our judges. I think all these factors affect whether people would want to join the judiciary. Also, should there be a significant pay adjustment so that people who would like to work for the judiciary would stay in their posts, and also this might encourage emerging counsels or solicitors to join the judiciary. I've talked to some judges myself, and some of them said they did not have to put themselves into a dangerous position. I understand that the judiciary has been working to enhance the level of security. However, we also have to consider how we can protect the safety of our judges. Also, the administration mentioned about the use of AI and technologies, which can enable judges to deal with the cases more efficiently. In the panel meetings, we explored how we can make use of AI as well as different technologies to give judges more flexibility and options which would facilitate their handing down of judgment. I also understand that the administration said there is enough manpower in relation to the use of technologies. However, I do hope that we can make use of technologies to facilitate the work of JJOs so that the talents can stay in the judiciary. Can the administration address my questions about the 12 factors? Thank you. Director. According to the Judicial Committee's report, paragraph 2.2, it is mentioned that in considering the work of JJOs, the Judicial Committee notes that all JJOs, despite the undue pressure and unfounded discredits, they resolutely and impartially carry out their work. So I see that the Judicial Committee has taken note of this. However, I understand Ms. Eunice Yong's comment. We object to any undue pressure or threat imposed on our judges. However, we also see that all JJOs have been carrying out their work arduously. As to whether these difficulties would make it hard for the judiciary to recruit talents, well, we will continue to monitor the situation, but the Judicial Committee has taken note of this. On the use of AI and technologies, in this week's meeting at the panel, there was discussions about the use of advanced technologies, and the judiciary has been following up on this. We do hope that we can help alleviate the burden of work for JJOs. Like Ms. Yoon said, we also want to save the document or paperwork for all the litigant parties. Before Professor Leung speaks, I want to remind members who would like to put questions to administration to join us at the meeting. Yes, Professor Leung. Judges in Hong Kong have a sense of mission. They do not only look at the remuneration packages. It's been always the case. This is because judges have to go through stringent tests to become where they are. Lawyers have to make a choice on whether they want to join the bench when they reach their golden eras in private practice. There has been a long-term manpower issue within the judiciary in Hong Kong. For judges who retire, they cannot return to private practice, and there are very few options left for them. For example, they can teach at universities. This is one of the options. A legal practitioner who chooses to join the judiciary when he is young is probably due to a sense of mission. Therefore, I've said time and again that we have to tell the JJOs that we really rely on them. Is it enough to increase their pay by 3%? Well, I don't think it is a very attractive pay increase. However, of course, I support this proposal. This is because all civil servants have enjoyed a 3% pay rise. Has the political pressure been deterring people from joining the judiciary? Well, I think this has been the case. It's not that I agree with all the judgments handed down by our judges. However, our judges have gone through certain recruitment procedures in order to come to where they are. So I think we have to pay respect to our judges. We have to nurture, attract, and retain talents. These talents have been enjoying a very good pay, and you have to lure them to join the judiciary. And so I think you have to explain to people about the importance of judges in Hong Kong as you train up talents. Judgments handed down by judges can affect our policies. We currently have 3 law schools in Hong Kong. The law school in City University has a history of 30 years, and the one of Hong Kong U has been established since 20 years ago. I think a lot of graduates of these law schools are interested in joining the judiciary. Therefore, I think you have to be aggressive. You should not rely on chambers to refer legal practitioners to you. you have to be ambitious and you have to also consider recruiting foreign judges. In terms of retaining talents, I believe that you have to tell people about the judiciary's vision. You also have to train up talents. I think an attractive remuneration package would also help. Judges are the cornerstone of our judicial system. That's all I want to say. I support the pay rise. I think Professor Leung is only giving her comments. Mr. Edward Leung. Director, do you have anything to say in response to what Professor Leung said? Well, a quick point. Well, Professor Leung suggested that the judiciary has to be more proactive and aggressive in its recruitment exercise. I agree. As mentioned, we will work with the legal sector to promote the work of the judiciary. We want to make our remuneration packages attractive in order to lure young legal practitioners to join the judiciary. Those who have 5 years of experience working as solicitors and barristers can apply for the posts at the district courts as well as the magistrate level. Any proposals made by the judiciary as well as the Judicial Committee will be considered and supported by the government. Thank you. Mr. Edward Leung. Western countries have been imposing pressure on our judges. I hope our judges can continue to be professional, and I appreciate their work. I think the pay rise is reasonable, so I support this proposal. Thank you. Mr. Benson Look. Thank you, Chairman. I support the 3% pay rise for judges and judicial officers. According to the paper, the judiciary, in terms of maintaining the number of JJOs, it's been facing lots of challenges. I think on one hand, we have to attract professional people to join the judiciary. On the other hand, we have to retain experienced judges to serve beyond their retirement age. I think we are facing similar problems in other professional sectors. Other sectors have been trawling for talents as well. Paragraph 17 of the paper says that there was the judicial pay mechanism was pegged to the civil service pay system. I understand that it is not currently the case, and the government has been working to enhance the image of judicial independence of the judiciary. And the judiciary this time has been following the 3% pay rise of the civil service when coming up this proposal. And the 3% pay rise will only increase this financial year's expenditure by about $15.3 million. To draw for talents, what we have to do is to increase the pay rise. That means we can consider a pay increase of more than 3%. The overall remuneration packages of JJOs exceed that of the private sector. You mentioned that the remuneration package outruns that of the private sector by 7% and 19% respectively for district judges as well as high court judges. Can you give us examples of how the remuneration packages of JJOs are better than that of the private sector? Also, I understand that the judiciary hopes that judges can serve beyond their retirement age. I don't think by increasing the pay by 3% you can achieve your goal. Can the administration tell us what measures will the judiciary put in place to make sure that the judges will stay beyond their retirement age?
那么即请多。
Director. Thank you. As I've said, public sector pay is one of the factors that the Judicial Committee considers. The committee consider the basket of factors before they arrive at the figure. Director, I think that Mr. Look asks if you can give us an example on how the JJO salary is higher than that in the private sector. The speaker is off mic. For magistrates, well, applicants for magistrates only have to be licensed as a barrister or lawyer with 5-year experience. And the starting pay, if you look at the pay scale, is 157,000 monthly salary in Hong Kong dollars. The first contract lasts for 3 years plus 3 years, and there is a 25% of gratuity towards the end of the contract. Towards the end of the contract, the magistrates can either join the permanent establishment or enter into a 3x3 contract. So it seems that there is no security of tenure for magistrates under the basic law, but as long as the magistrate serves for more than 6 years, they can get pension. Apart from gratuity, salary, and pension, we also offer local education allowances for primary and secondary school study, overseas education allowances, medical benefits, including medical insurance, holiday allowances, and so on. Director, I think that's enough. Please address the second question on how we retain JJOs in the establishment. A few years ago, the judiciary extended the retirement age of the JJOs. The normal retirement age for CFI in High Court has been extended to 70 years old from 65 years old. The maximum retirement age is 75 years old. So for experienced judges reaching 70 years old, if they're willing, they can have their contract extended to 75 years old. And for final court of appeal, their judges can serve until they're 76 years old. We try to retain the most experienced judges. Thank you. Only Mr. Paul Che is left. Any other members like to speak? If not, then after Mr. Paul Che has spoken, we will vote on this item. Mr. Che, thank you. Just like other elite professionals in Hong Kong, the pay for the top-tier talents is very high. Some specialists in the medical field earn $1 million per month. But for legal practitioners and barristers, senior barristers, they perhaps don't earn $1 million or $10 million per month, but their salary is definitely higher than that of the JJOs. For district courts, judges, it's easy for us to recruit talents. For high court judges, they have to have 15 years of experience. It is impossible for us to hire lawyers given our pay. The high court judges may enjoy a sense of superiority when they take up the job. That's why they join the judiciary. Maybe they prefer the stability. For high-earning barristers and senior barristers, they have to work long hours, and that's why perhaps some of them join the judiciary. And I agree with what some members said. Say for final court of appeal judges, their salary should be even higher. We should not put in place a pay rise of 3% across the board for all types of judges or judges at different levels. It is said in the paper that the Judicial Committee thinks that the pay adjustment mechanism should not be pegged to that of the civil service because we have to maintain judicial independence. How is pay related to judicial independence? I wonder why you stress this in your paper, and you quoted this reason to justify why you unpack the pay adjustment mechanism for JJOs and civil servants. You talked about also sanctions. A lot of principal officers of the administration are being sanctioned either. You also talked about cost of living, our economic situation, our budgetary situation. But apart from facts and figures, the director did not give us a rationale on how we use or consider these factors. Can you explain in detail why we don't lower the pay of JJO regardless of the economic situation? The judiciary said that the pay for JJOs should not be lowered in principle. Why is that? I completely agree that we should attract and retain talents, but the justifications of judicial independence, is this a form of legal pride or judicial pride? Because a lot of legislative councils, government officials don't join the institutions to earn a high pay. Are the JJOs untouchable? That's why we can only increase their pay, but not lower. They are, at the end of the day, a part of the society. I'd like to know what their justifications are. Director. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As mentioned in the paper, we used to peg the pay adjustment mechanism of the JJO with that of the upper salary band civil servants. But in the 2008 study, we found out that the conditions and the nature of work of JJOs and senior civil servants are very different. To strengthen the perception of judicial independence, we delink the mechanism. However, we still look at the public pay. When we adjust the pay for JJOs, that's why it's still one of the factors. The judiciary said that because of judicial independence, there should not be any reduction in judicial pay even if the pay is reduced for the civil service for any reasons. One of the elements of judicial independence is that their trials and hearings should not be affected. we also have to ensure their financial independence. So over the years, the request for resources and manpower from the judiciary to the administration are all approved. Over the years, we thank the Legislative Council for supporting the funding up proposals from the judiciary. That's all for my response. Thank you. There being no other questions, I put FCR 2024-25-39 to a vote. For those in favor of the proposal, please put up their hands. Thank you. Those against, please raise their hands. If not, I think that members who voted are in favor of the proposal. I declare this proposal approved. The next meeting will be held on the 6th of December 2024. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.